You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's Downton Abbey After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Downton Abbey After Show.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bing is for doing, and we are here doing another AfterBuzz TV After Show for Downton Abbey Series 4, Episode 1. I'm John Comerford, and I'm joined in the studio by
Tamara Berg. Hey, everybody, it's the UK
airing
version,
absolutely.
of Downton
and
Abbey.
Helming the booth for us is Marissa Serafini. Marissa, thank you very much for doing this for us.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited Downton Abbey's back.
I know. She's going to be so busy keeping us on track. She may not be able to chime in from time to time, but thank you very much for. Anyway, okay. So I just want to briefly start off by saying how this thing was very well received in Britain. They had it, I guess, about 10 million viewers.
Yeah, I have the stats right here.
What are the stats?
The show drew an average audience of 9.5 million viewers, and that's almost 40% of the Sunday night viewing audience.
40%. That's amazing.
The peak viewing was 10.5 million viewers,
Right.
but the X Factor actually beat out the show
Look at
in its
that. Go
entirety.
figure.
But that's a huge rating.
huge.
And it is also the best ever UK viewing figures for a series opener.
Wow. Okay,
in history,
and very well received. I was reading the reviews. Almost everybody was saying how much they liked it. Of course, they had the haters too. But overall, I think everybody was happy to have it back and anxious to see it. And I think somebody was talking about how it was such a great respite from the reality
of Sunday night.
Exactly. To
Which
go
means
back
you're
in
going
time.
back to work on Monday.
Exactly. To go back in time and enjoy Downton Abbey. So to get into this story now, obviously Mary has a big choice ahead of her, whether to choose the living or the dead. Nanny West gets sacked, but where I want to start off is where the show started off, which was the departure of Mrs. O'Brien and
Yes.
sneaking off like a thief in the night, as Lord Grantham says. And it was great too, because that's pretty much what she did.
The most hated Miss O'Brien.
I know. And even the way they shot it, everything was dark and everything, and she really did look like she was absconding or something like that. What was going on? And just skirting away.
Well, and granted, part of it was probably that they didn't have the actress there, but
Yeah.
but I also loved that we just saw feet underneath the
and
bed,
just a
and
glimpse of her
a
leaving,
little
a
swish of
shadow
something
here.
and a shadow of
Exactly, yeah.
something.
And
It
of
was
course
very
that sets,
effective.
and that sets off the whole thing for the episode. In terms, the next morning when of course,
Word gets out.
when Anna turns on the light, she's not there, and then it becomes this whole thing. And I love the way they shot this. I like the way they really covered the house, and they showed the gossip just traveling through the household from upstairs to downstairs, all around. And I thought it was just beautifully choreographed. And it reminded me of. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, the opening shot of this episode was. Normally we see the beautiful,
yeah.
majestic-looking Downton Abbey, right?
Daytime.
And here it was it was very dark in the shadows, almost looking like a mystery to begin
Little
with.
foreboding.
Yes, yes, and that is the darkness that has kind of followed us into.
Because we are in mourning, so yeah.
Exactly. So I just thought, it was a different opening. I don't know if it's going to be the opening for.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be the opening for the entire season.
No,
but
and if you recall last series, I don't know if it was the final episode but I remember they had a new opening.
yeah,
then
it was the
too.
Christmas special.
Christmas special.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so there was a new opening there.
Yeah. Also, can we just address for a second? This is the first time that AfterBuzz has done
Oh, right.
Downton Abbey to coincide with the UK airing of the show.
Right.
And
We usually have to wait until they air it in America.
exactly,
but
wretched Americans, we have to wait.
So yeah, this is the first time we were doing it to coincide, and looking forward to it, and hoping that us Yankee interlopers will be well received by our cousins across the pond.
Cut us a little bit of slack.
Yeah,
I am a huge Anglophile.
Educate us when we make a mistake, but do it kindly.
Yeah, exactly. Bear with us. We're doing our best, and we love the show, and that's why we're here. So we're pretty excited about this.
So I thought before we get into Mrs. Hughes, excuse me, Mrs. O'Brien's departure. This is 6 months after we left off with the
Matthew.
death of Matthew. So that's why all the darkness and the mourning going on here. So Mrs. O'Brien scuttles off in the middle of the night. And when Anna finds her, and then the gossip travels through it. And I know I've already talked about it, but I just love the way it just followed the gossip. You just followed the gossip through the Downton.
That shot from above when word got out with the servants, it was
they were in the main hall.
In that beautiful main hall.
Yeah.
And it was just great to see. It was really interesting, and you got a lot of the energy without hearing the words. And
right. You didn't need to hear the words, and also it brought us right back. It reminded us why we liked the Highclere. Downton Abbey. Beg your pardon. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just really enjoyed that. I do want to remark that somebody was talking about. Somebody made a comment about how they don't like Downton Abbey to watch Downton Abbey as much anymore. So it could because it's so clearly no longer shot at Highclere Castle, and that the production value has been lost because they're in the studio now. And I went, "Are you crazy? Did you not see that opening? That was not shot on some
in a studio
somewhere. That was seven.
Now downstairs is in a studio, and
it
it always has been.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but upstairs is in Highclere Castle, mostly.
Okay, so let's get into the repercussions of Mrs. O'Brien leaving. So now they've got to find somebody else, and where are they going to look? And the way Cora was just so devastated by this, and how could it happen? And how could Susan do this to me?
How could she not tell me?
Yes, exactly. And they're taking care of Rose, her daughter, at the same time.
Right. While Rose is under our roof.
I know.
She was highly indignant about that.
I know, and I was kind of surprised by it too. But of course, it was set up last series because we saw how Mrs. O'Brien got along with Susan, Lady Flintshire, I should say, and how they wanted. Obviously, Mrs. O'Brien had talked about how she would love to travel, and they were going to go to India and stuff, and so that's how that was all set up. So anyway. But it was kind of shocking. Well, even more shocking than that it all happened was that Rose seemed to take responsibility for it, which seemed so out of character to me because Rose didn't really seem to care about anything.
Well, it was interesting. When she walked in the breakfast room, they were talking about it. She walked in and said, "It's all right, I know." And Lord Grantham, "No, it isn't all right."
Exactly.
Apparently, it's really devastating to lose a servant like that in that time. But
without notice or warning or anything like that. And I guess that's the thing that they were really more than anything.
It's someone who lives with you and takes care of your most intimate issues.
But do you think it was that so much, or was it because that Lady Flintshire was the one that stole her, basically? Because I think that's the thing that was most upsetting.
Yes,
so how
I
could
think
that
was
happen?
more upsetting, for sure.
Because she just extended such a huge courtesy to bring Rose in.
Right.
And this is how it was repaid.
Yeah, that is a betrayal. There's no question.
So that was, anyway, more than anything, I was just wondering, do you think Rose has got something else? I mean, she doesn't know who she eventually found.
Right. So let's go to that first.
All right.
So Rose decides she's going to put a card up in the local shop.
And isn't willing to even tell for what. Remember, the woman asked, so what's it for, what position, and she doesn't even say.
Well, and
Does it matter?
I thought that was a little bit odd. Because
it was odd.
You're going to put the card in and go, "I need someone to call me for something."
Yeah, but she wasn't willing to tell this person. But I'm going, so
all she has
already
to do is walk out and read the window.
I know, but so already I'm going, okay, what's up her sleeve, and why is she doing this?
Right, exactly. There's some subterfuge going on
Yes,
there.
Exactly. And we already know Rose is, well, let's say she's fast and loose with the truth. Can we say that? Based on where we found her in the jazz clubs. So, and how Matthew had to save her.
Yes,
actor rather than character. So, she puts the card out, and of course, who would find it? Was Edna. Of all people. Edna, yes.
Beautiful, interesting Edna.
But isn't this great? Because when we first learned that Siobhan was going to be leaving the show, I'm going, who are they going to get to fill that void of that kind of negativity and whatever devilishness, I guess. And then when you saw her, I went, oh, perfect.
Well,
nice.
Conniving
Yes,
maid.
exactly. What an operator.
Right.
So she's going to fill in nicely, I think. I mean, we saw her last series, trying to get together with Branson and the trouble that caused. And I thought it was just great how that all came around. Because we know that she's up to no good to some fashion. She's even lying about whether or not she's actually staying with her aunt or helping her aunt.
Right.
Because she's, Cora kind of catches her a little bit when they have their little interview at the tea that they were having. And you, okay, so what's up? You know, she says, oh, I've gone away. I've got some training. I can do hair now. So now I'm a, you know,
I'm a lady's
exactly.
maid.
I'm a so, but well, I'm fascinated. So this is going to be the nice twist here because she's going to go ahead.
Right. Well, and I just think it's so. I just think it's so interesting that in that conversation so it's Rose and Lady Grantham and Edna sitting there talking. Well, of course I'll have to speak to Mrs. Hughes. Oh, as it happens, I've got a perfect reference for Mrs. Hughes. So it's all working out just right for her.
Yeah, and it's so perfect, too perfect actually. How is it, you know? And I'm wondering, okay, Rose doesn't know her. I mean, there's no indication that she does.
Right. So, but there's something going on.
Something is going on,
right?
And I think they did a really good job of like not telling us, so that we go, okay, this is good. So
unless she does know.
Yeah, but I mean, why? If she knew, why would she put the card out? Why wouldn't she just go get her and go? Edna, here's what we're gonna do.
That's a good
so
point.
there's no point of putting the card out. But but it seems like Edna and Rose have separate agendas going on.
That
I don't
happen
think they
to be
coincide.
complementary.
Yeah, they just happen to work in. So that'll be interesting because I really don't believe that Rose is just doing this because she feels responsible.
No.
I have a hard time believing that.
No. Maybe part of it is that she's thinking that Edna, because she's young and pretty, will kind of be on Rose's side.
Yeah.
You know, because Rose is always trying to get away with something.
Yeah, maybe she wants somebody to, you know, be the ear.
Cover for her.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, it could be. I mean, that may be enough. But what's Edna's agenda? Because she clearly wants to get back into Downton.
I think Edna's agenda is...
You think it's Branson still?
Branson.
Really?
I do.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I can believe that. I mean, because she was very interested before.
I'm very much liking living at Downton Abbey, if you know what I mean. She says.
Yeah. But even better was the little tete-a-tete with the three Mrs. Hughes, Carson, and Branson.
Right. So they're all sitting like in a darkened room, trying
Carson's
to figure out how to deal
what are we gonna
with
do
this.
now?
Right.
Yeah, she's coming back, and we put her there because you made me give her that reference. Mrs. Hughes tells Branson, and for good reason, because he didn't want her to lose a gig. And then it's Carson that comes up with the placation to say, okay, well, we'll just have to deal with it. We're going to let her stay, and we're just going to make sure she behaves. Right, that's going to happen.
Right, and Mrs. Hughes, this sounds like a ticking time bomb to me.
Yeah, it clearly.
Me too.
Yeah, signpost. Yeah, clearly going to be a ticking time bomb.
But I don't know. Do you think that Tom, I guess we call him Tom. Let's just call him Branson. Do you think Branson is going to succumb to her womanly wiles?
No, I don't. For many reasons, but we'll get into those when we talk about predictions. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think that'll be it. But I think that's what will have her turn even more evil, because he won't succumb to her wiles. So now she'll be a woman scorned. I came all the way back here, and you're not gonna follow through on this. Are you kidding me? And then she's gonna make everybody's life hell.
That'll be good.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
She's got a look to her, you know, physically her look is so interesting that, you know, she could easily go angelic or evil.
Oh.
And so, I mean, just in my mind, because she's so pretty, but she has those kind of pointy eyes that could, you know, if you accentuate.
And for those who were just listening, Tammy,
I'm going like this.
I'm not exactly sure how to describe. She's making pointy eyes.
Well, she just has one of those faces. You don't instantly look at her and go, Angel. You go, there's something else going on there. So
the devil within.
Right. I'm looking forward to what Edna's going to be bringing to Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
I mean, we've lost a villain, so
and we
we've
have
got
to
to bring
replace it
one
with
in.
somebody. And you know, so who will that be? And here it is, Damn Edna rather than Dame Edna. That's how I'm going to call her. Damn Edna. So
good one, John.
All right, so that's how.
Hashtag Damn Edna.
There you go. All right, so that takes us over to Mary, because obviously Mary is the one that pretty much, well, her arc, I should say, is the overriding arc for this particular episode, because she's the one dealing most traumatically and most deeply with Matthew's death, of course, as you would expect. And we start her off, the first time we see her, we start her off with Anna, and, you know, Anna's trying to get her ready and dressed, and she's all in black, and Anna offers her the lilac shawl or
lavender
covering, whatever it might have been, and she says, "No, where's the black one?" So, and right there, she's completely in her mourning, and in a weird way, and I'm going to say this, and it's not going to make any sense. She's happy in her mourning, meaning that she has no interest in doing anything but grieve and mourn, and even to the point where she's just ignoring the baby to some degree, to most degree.
Right. She's very resigned to it, it feels like to me. And
I'm not going on a world tour.
right. And just, as much as it's interesting because she talks about it later we'll talk about the scene more with Maggie Smith, but she says, any kind of life and warmth that was in me
Is
that
gone.
Matthew saw is
the
just gone.
softness that he saw in me
has melted away and dried up.
Yeah, and it may never have existed to begin with. It might have been only in his imagination. And I thought, wow, that's where she is. The idea, the thought that anything that was good about you in some, because I think that's where she is, anything that might have been light or good about her was only seen through his eyes, and that since those eyes can no longer see, it doesn't exist, and therefore I'm just this cold and dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So,
she's a zombie.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was, because they talk about how cold she was and all that other stuff.
Well, and she and Matthew talked about that in series 3 about how, and actually I think it was the Christmas special from series 2 where he, maybe not, but where he was proposing to her and they were deciding to be together. And then, in the run up to their wedding, she kept saying, sort of to paraphrase, I love who I am as you see me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, that's what love is, kind of, getting to see yourself through the eyes of one who loves you. And the idea that could never return because he can't return, I could see that happening.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's just, she I don't think she can see a future for herself, even though she has a son desperately in need of a mother. But the nanny's taking care of that, which we'll talk about the nanny in a bit.
Oh,
yeah.
nanny.
So and that part was difficult to watch because I'm going, you have a son, but I guess if you have people taking care of the son and you can't even take care of yourself or even see yourself being worthy of it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I'm just like, somebody shake her.
Well, but also she brings off that line, "You poor little orphan."
Yeah, she in her
for
mind.
George.
Yeah.
And so she's passing along her pain to her child who doesn't even know it yet, and endowing him with this great loss.
Yes, and it was oddly echoed in the fact that because she's saying basically she doesn't exist, but even in the eyes of the law, she barely exists because now that Matthew's dead. It's everything that Matthew was about kind of bypasses her and goes over to George. So she doesn't even have position.
Right.
As a lady.
Right.
And I was, and they kept hitting that. They rang that bell a few times. And obviously I know that's how it was done back then. But it's still shocking when you think about it because, it all went to George. And she was, even Lord Grantham, when he was talking about her, even Cora was saying, Branson was saying he would like her to be part of the playing, and she's not a player in this. Like Grantham was saying, and when Cora was bringing it up, he said, "Look, it's not. She was never a part of this anyway.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is, and I'm gonna have to take care of it because Matthew and I were partners, and now I'm gonna take care of the kid, and." She doesn't have a say in it, basically.
Yeah.
Just going. So anywhere where she looks, she kind of is just kind of pushed to the side in some degree, in her mind anyway. I don't necessarily think that.
We are in the 20s now, and so life is changing. We saw life changing a little bit as as Matthew and Lord Grantham retooled the estate and how things are changing. We had a mixer.
Yes,
literally
yes,
an electric
mixer. I love
mixer
how they
come
keep
in.
bringing in every once in a while. They'll bring in a newfangled object.
But so there's this new attitude about women and their rank and possibility in the world as well.
And Lady Edith was talking about that. Go ahead.
Nope.
Well, because I know we were going to talk about Lady Edith later, but just because you brought up that point, she was talking about how to meet Michael Gregson, in public,
right?
It was just that shocking. Couldn't have done this 5 years ago. I couldn't even done this 5 years ago. And then she, if we compare how Mary was looking at all in that black, that long, heavy black, and always long sleeves, the whole thing, and here Lady Edith is stepping out in this flapper outfit. And you can actually see a slit in her dress. I'm going, hello. Before the ankles were covered, and here we are, the Roaring 20s beginning, and we got a slit in her dress. She's looking great. I mean, that's a big change between the two, and again, furthering where we are in the times.
Right. One of the other things that I appreciate about the show is that we do have Lady Cora coming in, because this show is such a huge hit in the U.S. I think almost bigger than it is in the UK. just from the popularity standpoint.
Right.
Everyone's talking about it. Everybody's, constantly excited about Downton Abbey. I love that there's a little bit of an infusion of the American sense, partly to help us understand, and also this thing about property.
Right.
Where for forever it has all passed through the men, and women are left penniless.
Yep.
And Cora is the one who brought the American money into the family in the first place. And so it's interesting to see the counterpoint and how the attitudes are different, and how the law is different, and to allow there to be a discussion there, because if it was an entirely British population within the show, that conversation wouldn't come up as much. And so I really like that we can, that we can see that and discuss it and debate it a little bit in this context.
Great. And even Cora was bringing it up when they were talking about it. I thought that was terrific, and just to help us along for no other reason, but it allows you to explain what was going on at the time, because not everybody knew.
Right.
But let's get back to Mary a little bit more because we see that Lord Grantham is protecting his daughter as he should, as the father and everything.
Shielding her is the word he
exactly,
used.
and not letting her, wanting her to heal, and not even. I mean, the way it was so condescending to some degree. I'm going, geez, for crying out loud. But Mary was actually appreciative.
She was
of
fine
it.
with
She's
it.
like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to resign myself. You guys deal with it all. Doesn't he want to? But of course, Branson doesn't want to, because if anybody should understand it, Branson should. He knows what it's like to lose a spouse and lose a great love. In fact, when he was talking with, I thought that was one of the best lines.
Oh
when
my
he was
gosh.
talking with Lord Grantham. And Lord, Branson says he loved her very much, and with great love comes great misery when one of you dies. And Grantham is so oblivious.
Right. And Branson's sitting there,
I
dude.
know, exactly.
I got it.
Yeah. But that was the thing about this episode that I was also saying. Hello, why isn't, I know, Branson clearly should have been the one to help in some degree, and he was trying to, because he was obviously realizing that you need to get back in the game here. It's been 6 months, and we need just take an interest in anything. And from his own pain, he was realizing that. And he had his daughter to take care of. So
right.
He was but there wasn't a lot of talk about that.
About Sybil being gone.
Yeah, and I was kind of shocked by that. I mean, I know that Mrs. Hughes talked to Lady Grantham about it, saying if anybody should be able to talk to a daughter about losing, and Mrs. Grantham, Lady Grantham says, I don't think so, because if I had lost an only daughter, I'd be a wreck.
Right.
But
I would have died.
Exactly. And I'm going, but why? I just thought that was a misstep for me. I wanted that explored more, because it was almost as if they kind of just forgot that Sybil had died.
Well, but it's been a while since Sybil died.
I know, but how do you forget your own child dying, and you barely even, they barely even touched upon it, and I thought that would be the thing that you would go to. And I know Lord Grantham forgot it, and then he realizes his mistake with Branson, and he says, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. But I'm going to, wouldn't anybody look, if there's anybody that would understand this, it's him. He's been through it, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 2-3 years
so
ago.
you're saying it's not so much that they didn't mention it, it's that they didn't explore how Branson was connected to losing a spouse at the bloom of their love and all of that.
They had the argument here with Lord Grantham saying, hey, look, just let her deal with it in her own way, in her own time. She can't just protect the crap out of her, so she's shielded by everything and doesn't experience life. And then you have the other argument, which on the other side was
get out and come back to
exactly, get out and come back to life, which I totally agree with, and obviously that won out. But there wasn't anybody just really talking about, look, we've been here before.
Yeah.
We know how to help these people through this.
Right.
I mean, and I just was going, how could you, that's, to me, was a misstep.
Okay.
But anyway.
I could support you on that
All
argument.
All right, but so obviously Branson is getting nowhere with Grantham, so he decides to enlist some help, and who does he go to? But Carson. And I thought that when he goes in to see Carson.
Daddy number 2.
Exactly, and I'm getting nowhere with him, but who else? But obviously Carson as daddy number 2 really has the ear of Lady Mary.
Yes, he does.
But I thought the meeting between Carson and Branson the first time was good.
Yes.
Because you had Carson still has kind of some animus there and some just difficulty with Tom Branson, because he's
when he called her Mary, Lady Mary,
all that kind of stuff. So they're carrying that along, which is nice, because Carson's not likely to change too quickly, but he does see the value in speaking to Mary, because he knows that Mary needs to be moved along. She needs to be start to heal and to move on with life, because she has a child to take care of.
Yes.
But I was so stunned by how I thought it was great, the scene between he and Carson, when she decides she goes, well, in some sense, goes off on him because he's overstepped.
dresses him down was what I read.
Oh,
she
yeah.
just dressed him
Yeah,
down.
right.
Who the heck do you think you are?
But you know, it's
But in
my
a-
fault.
But
I
it was
loved it.
it was
Yeah.
so much more of a demeaning way she
Yeah,
said
it
it.
was terrible.
It's my fault for allowing you
Exactly.
to think.
I know, it was
Which
shocking.
felt like so much more sickening to me as I was listening to it.
Yeah, I was watching. I was like, this feels awkward.
Right.
I felt really bad for Carson, and it was just, and just, it was, she just seemed that was the cold Mary and the heartless one that we knew in the beginning.
Yep.
It's like, wow, she's back. Damn,
Right.
that was terrible.
Right. But I loved that the moment before, so he took it,
Yeah.
he heard her say, "Oh, no, you don't."
Yeah.
And walked out, and just before he left,
Yeah.
he said, "You're letting yourself be defeated.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I have to say this or if I'm overstepping
it's
my
a
bounds,
lapse for me to say. it,
overstepping my mark or
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
it is, but someone has to say
yeah.
it."
Which is the thing that you wanted because you
Yeah.
wanted somebody to shake her.
I thought that was incredibly courageous
It was,
of him.
and I honestly thought that the way he was looking and the way she was talking
Yep.
to him, I thought he was just going to
Leave it.
And I thought it was great that he turned and said, no, 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 and just let it hang there.
Right, which just shows me that it's not about him in that moment. It was about her, because as uncomfortable as it was for him
Yeah.
to turn back and say, "I think that you are letting yourself being defeated." That's a difficult conversation to have with
Yeah.
Mary. And he took the courage and gave it back to her and said, "Look, here's the reality of what I think about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what you say because you're my fake daughter."
and it's my position.
And it's my position
to shut up and not say anything.
as
But I'm gonna go
as
against that.
servant to shut
Yeah.
up, but as number 2 dad, I have to say
That's
it.
it. And thankfully it did.
Yeah.
So, but it still kind of wasn't enough because later on we have the Dowager that. and I think it's
Oh
the
my
Dowager that
God! Once again, Maggie Smith.
knocks it out of the park. Yeah, because I just loved that scene. I thought it was, for me, it was the best scene. I mean, there was a lot of scenes that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed
Oh
the whole
my
episode. I was
gosh.
really happy to have it back. But yeah, that scene, and I thought it was great, because they obviously had the scene at the dinner table where Mary flips out and decides, I
Yes.
gotta leave me alone. My husband, don't you know what it's like? And she just
Yes.
storms out. And Dowager says, okay, and Lord Grantham says the idea, like, see, this is what I was afraid of, and don't you agree, Mother? No.
No, no.
The guy can't win with his mom. No way.
Well, and that's one of the things that we love about Maggie Smith's character is because she is so entrenched in the tradition.
Right.
She's so prepared to staunchly defend where they have always been, and then she continually comes up and surprises us and goes,
Yeah.
"You know what? No to that."
Yeah. And then when she has that scene, when the Dowager and Mary have that scene together, and
Yeah.
I just the whole thing with Mary, just lying in bed and being untouched
Half
by
dead.
half dead. She almost looked like she was in a coffin. She's wearing the black and the whole thing.
Yep.
Dead eyes, the whole thing. And she's saying, "Oh, you're supposed to want me to apologize for acting badly." And of course, Dowager says, "Why would I care? I'm not your governess. I'm your grandmother." And when she says, "What difference would that make?" And then it was the way that Maggie chose to say, "I'm your grandmother because I love you," and the hesitation she had. It was almost like she
Has never said
has
that.
never said it, or if she has, it's been very few and far between. But the way she did it, then you realize the weight of that because she took her time to say that, because it's not something they say often.
No.
And then the way that Mary, I should say Michelle, the actress, took that and let that moment sit and then responded as like, "Oh, wow, that was huge." I thought that was great. And then you see the touch at the end and everything, because I don't imagine they're not a touch.
There's not a lot of that happening
No,
in that family. No.
But you could see that she started that, and that's where, of course, they had the conversation about the softness in her, and
Right.
it may be all gone. But then you see that moment there with the grandmother, and you forget for a second the Dowager, and you forget who Lady Mary is. You kind of just see the grandmother trying to help her granddaughter there in that
Yes.
moment. And I thought, okay, well, there's some light there. You could see that there is some softness still in her, and that somebody else sees it as well. But even seeing that, that the Dowager realizes she's not. She even says, you may not be that kind of mother that Matthew might have thought you would be, but that doesn't mean you can't be a great mother. And
Yeah,
an
because
effective
there are
one.
many kinds of good
Many kinds of
mothers.
mother. To hopefully give her a view of the possibility that she has as a mother and the effect she could have on George.
Yeah.
So, anyway, very effective. And then isn't it right after that she goes back into the stairwell and then decides to go back? In the stairwell is where she's headed upwards, and she stops, and then she decides that she needs to go talk to Carson and apologize.
I don't know if it happens right after.
It is.
But
I think
happens.
I'm pretty sure it's right after.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk about that because the stairwell is very well used in this particular episode.
Yes.
The first time we see Mary coming down the stairwell in this episode, Edith is going up the stairwell, and she's got the Valentine card from Michael Gregson and stuff like that, and they meet on the stairwell, and then it's one of those classic sister scenes between the two of them. Where
I
you can
swear
see
I got frostbite on that moment.
it's like, really? Do they hate each other that much, or they just don't know each other? I mean, obviously they know each other. I don't mean that. What I mean is, they just seem so awkward, like they can't ever have a regular conversation.
I know. Well, it reminded me of the moment before Edith's wedding where they were taking pictures outside the church.
Yeah, let's pretend like we...
Let's pretend at least, because this is a beautiful day, let's at least for this moment pretend like we like each other. It's like, and I've talked about this before. I love my sisters very much. I'm very close with my sisters. And so the idea of them not only not being close, but being a million miles apart from each other and having that, just icy chasm between them is very strange to me. But I mean, I know I'm sure it's real, and lots of people have it in their families.
Yeah, we did. But I just like the way it was shot. I like the way that the way they were costumed. I mean, just everything about that particular scene was wonderful.
And then Edith goes up. Enjoy your day, Mary says, or whatever it is.
Have a happy time.
Have a happy time.
Yeah, have a happy time. And then when she turns on, gets to the landing, she's just staring at the bottom of the stairs, the foot of the stairs, and you have this memory. And that angle shot, I don't know if it's an exact duplicate of the other scene from Series 3 when she and Matthew are down there and they're professing, or she's professing his
probably.
Her love. Yeah,
I think it's Series 2 actually.
Series 2, I beg your pardon. But it just evoked enough, because when I first saw the shot, I'm go, what is it? Why is it? Oh.
Yeah, I knew it instantly. When I saw it, I knew it right away because I remembered that so vividly when we watched it.
And it was such a memory of what could have been between she and Matthew, what was, and hopefully what would have been if had he not died. And it was just the look on her face was just devastating. That she's just coming down the stairs and she's reminded of that. And I just thought that was great.
Heart-wrenching.
It was heart-wrenching, and also I thought it was interesting that they chose that same stairwell. Of course, which other stairwell would you take? But why shoot it on the stairwell when after the Dowager says all this, and she has that moment on the stairwell where she's heading up now, and she's making the decision, like, you know what? This is the time when she wants to apologize. Because obviously whatever Dowager said got to her. Yeah. And she realized there was something here. So I just think it was interesting that they chose the two stairwells, and the way they did it.
What kind of came to me at this moment when she was getting ready to go talk to Carson, and I don't mean this literally, I mean it figuratively, that there's nowhere to go but up. Yeah. From here. Because she was in such a terrible place, and obviously, literally, she went downstairs.
Obviously, clearly.
But that was that sense that I had. There was a possibility of rising from where she was.
And for me, I took it as this: is before I can move up, I have to acknowledge that and make amends for this moment because I realize I was wrong here, and until I do that, I can't move forward. That's right. That's right.
I think that's good. I think that's good.
So.
Yeah.
And it was, but I don't know. There was a lot of people talking about that scene between Mary and Carson. Where talk about overstepping the bounds. She's crying and he's holding her and stuff. Like, whoa, hey, hello.
Oh, good Lord.
He's just a servant. He shouldn't be doing that.
I cannot watch another person cry without crying, and I can't obviously even think about it because I'm starting to tear up right now. I mean, it could be the most nasty person in the world if they start shedding real tears. I burst into tears myself. Yeah. But. So he says, does this mean that you've decided to return to the land of the living? And if so, I'm glad. Yeah.
And that, of course, is coming back up what the Dowager said. Not that they had a scene together, but the Dowager said you have a very clear choice ahead of you. You can either choose the living or choose the dead.
Yeah.
So.
But that moment of her just crying and sobbing, just finally letting it all go was incredibly touching, and it was the opportunity for us to see that there is, there's life after Matthew. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how that, because she's not going to be touchy-feely and all warm, fuzzy and everything.
Right, like but we do also know, spoiler alert, it's not like it's a big surprise. They're going to be, they keep talking about, they've been talking about the casting for Lady Mary's
Love
love
interest,
interest.
yeah.
So there was going to be some romance
Yeah,
coming in. So we know that's
Yeah.
coming, and it was just nice to see that. Just sorry to use the cliche, but see the ice finally break and her
Yeah.
go through it. Because
Right.
that's not how people dealt with grief back then.
And well, for me, when I saw all that, I said, okay, so George might have a mother after all. So
Yeah.
he might have a shot here. So maybe we'll see that.
Prince George.
Prince George. Of course. Do you think that was an accident? They named him Prince. That Julian Fellows decided to name him George. Like, what do you think?
I love it. I don't think it was an accident at all.
Did you
There's
think so?
nothing's
Okay.
accidental
Yeah, I
in
know, but,
television
I mean,
anymore.
it was kind of
in
an
filmmaking.
it's like a nod to the young prince, or
I
what?
think it's sweet. I think it's
Okay.
cute, and I think it's a little like it's an Easter egg. It's a little of those.
So he's just
nudge,
bringing the
nudge.
future into the past, so to speak.
I guess. I just
Okay.
think it's a fun little Easter egg. That's all I think
Right.
it is.
Okay, so, but it's good to see that that's come through.
Oh, and then Mary's last scene. Sorry, I forgot about
Mary's
that.
last scene.
flipped
So
my
yeah,
pages
because
too
Lord,
fast.
they finally, Mary's been saying no, I don't want to be involved with this. Branson wants her, and Grantham said no, leave her alone, leave her alone.
Mm-hmm.
And finally at the luncheon, she, at the last minute, she shows up, and of course she's no longer wearing the black. She is wearing the lilac and the blue, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that she really has. And man, she had a presence there, didn't?
Yes.
And Branson, of course, gives up his chair for her, which I thought was a nice little touch. But I just like the way she was comported herself in that moment, and asking questions, and they kind of just pulled away on that, so okay, she's back.
Right.
So
Now let me ask you, just to speculate on this. How do you think Mary will be as a presence for herself and her family and the estate? I mean,
Well-
she's kind of a modern gal, but
Yeah.
she's not as plugged in as Edith.
No, but I think because she's obviously highly intelligent, and she even said, I have ideas.
She did. You're
She
right.
did. And when she wanted her way with Matthew, she knew how to go about getting it.
You're right.
And so I hope they're going to turn her into this tycoon kind of thing, where she's a formidable force, like her grandmother.
And her mother
both of her
as
grandmothers,
well.
so to speak. Yeah, her mother too, but her mother's way more genteel than I would think
True.
anybody would accuse Mary of being. I think Mary's way more forthright.
I agree.
Forthcoming, I should say, and forthright. But that's what I want to see, because then I think you're going to get a lot of pushback. Not only from her father, but
Right.
even from her grandmother, either one. But I think that will be great, because then we'll have some nice conflict and all that other stuff. But I think you'll see her trying to grow into that, fighting against those kinds of laws. And
Conventions.
Yeah, and not necessarily that she's going to fight a law, but the fact that she doesn't have a say in her son's or in her husband's inheritance, and it's going right to her son. I mean, that kind of thing. I think she's going to come up against that all the time, and I think she's formidable in that regard, and I think she'll step into that with great fervor, and I think that would be fun.
You were going to say verve too, weren't you?
I was going to say verb, but that didn't sound right. So.
It's the 20s.
Yeah, exactly.
There could be vervy things happening.
We could. All right, well, we got to move on to other stories.
Oh gosh, we really do. My goodness, I didn't see the time.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Nanny West.
Let's talk Nanny West. We bring in Nanny West, and she looks like such a wonderful nanny, right? One of those classic British nannies. Not as classic as, shall we say, McPhee or Poppins or anything like that, but she looked like a great little.
She's nice and round,
yes,
which
and
we like
round.
in our
She
nannies.
seems very cheery, and of course, for whatever reason, doesn't want Thomas to touch the children at all.
She and Thomas just don't get
Oh
along.
my God!
From the
Don't
very
and I'm
start.
wondering, does she know about Thomas? Has she heard about Thomas being such a bad guy?
Right.
Or whatever? I'm going because you didn't see her being that way. Well, that's not true, because when Isabel wanted to go see the children, she wouldn't even
She
let
wouldn't
her.
let her in.
And I go, wait a minute.
I'm grandma. I get to do whatever I want.
Exactly. The nanny can tell you when you can see the kids and when you can't. You're the grandmother. What? That seems so odd to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's legit? They can do that?
I guess so. Apparently
I can't believe the grandma's
The nanny-
Exactly.
the-
Screw you. You're a servant. Get out of here.
Nanny with the iron fist or something.
Yeah. But anyway, so does not take a liking to Thomas. Doesn't want him to touch it. In fact, tries to order him around and stuff. And of course, Thomas
Right.
does not take a liking to that.
Right.
I love the scene downstairs after she tried. Nanny West tried to order him the first time.
the
and
eggs. About the eggs.
I don't know what she ordered him, but
Okay.
I'm just talking about when Thomas went downstairs and she tried to give me orders and everything.
Right.
Bates said, "What? She mistake you for a servant?" I was, he isn't the servant. Well, don't tell him that. There's too much of a shock to him.
Great. That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was, and it was one of that little nice repartee you get downstairs. But
Right.
I thought it was also interesting, just a little moment there between Thomas and Mr. Bates, because, he still, Bates kind of regrets. Well, I don't know. He has second thoughts about whether or not he should have saved him, because he's the one that saved Thomas from getting sacked
Right?
by letting
Right.
the words out to Mrs. O'Brien about
O'Brien.
the soap.
Mhm.
He just said the word soap.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking, okay, they're keeping that alive, not only just for nice conflict, but it's probably going to come back to bite him too.
Well, I just also think it was interesting that Thomas was, he was such a villain for so
Yeah.
long.
Mhm.
And then kind of last series, he sort of relinquished his villainry,
And took a beating for James.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but now he's back.
Now he's back.
We've missed his villainry,
exactly.
so I guess.
But
that
in a
was
weird
part of
way,
it.
he was just kind of snarky, but she was snarky back, so he didn't really do anything that was villainous or, underhanded in some
Right.
sense. Obviously, he pulled Cora aside, Lady Grantham aside, and said, I don't think Nanny West is doing right by the children and leaving them to their own devices and all that kind of stuff. So he plants the seed. But with good reason now. I don't think Thomas knew anything.
No, I don't think so either.
Other than she was being a bitch to him.
Right. Right.
So I was going.
He didn't like the new girl.
It's not like he's
and
prescient about these things.
and
so,
she
yeah.
was bitchy.
Yeah.
So he decided, you know what?
But it was just fortuitous that it proved to be true, and now he's gonna.
Boy, he lucked out
Oh
on that
yeah,
one.
now he's looking like a hero to Cora.
Well, it's like finding the dog.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
When he hid the
Right,
dog and then
right.
found the dog.
Yeah, but
Found the
this.
dog.
But this one, this is just luck.
It was.
Happenstance, so.
Yeah, it was great luck for him.
Yeah, but I that was one of the more shocking moments of this particular
I
episode.
was stunned.
Yeah.
I had to rewind and watch it again.
Oh, did
'cause
you?
I was
Oh,
so
good.
surprised.
Okay.
Yeah, I literally went. I did. So right. So she's
Nanny West is.
Nanny West is going on, and to
Lady
the-
Grantham is overhearing from the
just
hallway.
listening, waiting, listening to just hear how lovely it's going to be between Nanny West and the baby.
Or
and
just checking on her because Thomas had already told her, keep an eye on her.
right. You
So.
chauffeur's daughter.
You
Go back to
half-breed.
sleep, you wicked little crossbreed.
Crossbreed. Whoa! It's like what? What? That wonderful, cute little roundy nanny said that.
Right.
That was not a Mary Poppins or.
It was
McPhee line
not
at
an Annie
all.
McPhee moment.
Shocking.
No, it
So.
wasn't.
And then the way she, I was just playing a game. What
It's a
game are you
joke.
playing? I mean, what's the game? How to be a racist? How to be an elitist? What's the game? So.
Well, I loved Cora coming in and
Yeah.
just taking over.
Oh, yeah, that
and
was great.
she is not to be with these people. She
Yeah,
is
not for me.
sacked. She is out. Get her out of here.
Yeah.
And your values have
I
no place in
choose
a
to
civilized home.
I choose not to discuss this, only to say that you. Yeah, that was great.
Right.
You go, way to go, Cora, coming to the rescue. And it was kind of, again, it's really satisfying. I had no idea. That was a great turn because I had no idea that's what they were going to do with this Nanny West. I thought, okay, brought in a new character and a nice foil for Thomas. That's great. And then, boom, just to have this happen. It's like, whoa, that was just a shocker. And then she's gone.
Right.
Just, that's it. It's out. Okay.
Right.
Interesting. So we got a lot of upturn, upheaval. We
Upheaval.
got people coming in. Yeah, we got to get a new lady. We got that with Damon. Now they got to get a new nanny, and so that'll be how is that going to affect everything? So we are getting some new blood coming into the. So there we go. That's fun. But the whole storyline with the nanny was just it was one. That was fun.
It was
fun.
right. Well, it was really shocking.
It was.
really shocking, and I loved that about it.
Yeah. But it was kind of weird when she was still holding the baby and Lady Grantham was talking to her. I'm going, geez, please put that baby down. Please put that. I was afraid she was gonna do something to the kid. Yeah.
Ooh,
that was
my.
A little scary to me for a second there. So all right, I want to move on to a couple of the other things.
Okay. We got to burn through.
Yeah,
this
we
'cause
have to
we're-
burn through because I love the Mrs. Hughes and the Carson storyline. So Carson gets this message, this note from
Right.
Grieg, an old friend from the theater days, and stuff, and
Right.
he has no interest. He crumples it up, throws it on the ground, and of course Mrs. Hughes just yeah, exactly not minding her own business as she should, but she reads it, of course, and then that sets off the whole thing to find out why this is happening and how we can help the guy. Go ahead.
So interesting. You used to sing and dance with him.
What? I mean, the only time I heard him singing was that other episode when they found out Mrs. Hughes was going to be okay.
Right.
And he was really singing there. That was kind of the first time we saw him joyful.
Right,
and gleeful,
exactly.
actually singing.
One of my Twitter followers had sent me a note that said she thought that Carson's mystery friend might be his brother. And I think they have a brotherly bond, but I don't think it's brothers.
Yeah, I don't think he's brother. I don't know why, because the way they refer to each other doesn't seem very brotherly, But
that can happen between siblings.
Well, I guess, but they call each other by their last names, and they don't have the same last name.
Right,
so
exactly.
that
They don't have the same
seems
last name.
odd, so.
But used to sing and dance together, and there was obviously something bad that happened between them.
So we got some backstory and some history there.
But so great of Mrs. Hughes to see the opportunity to help two people at once, possibly even three. Because she could be helping Carson
right,
in this as well.
She could be mending that as well.
But so she brings it to to Isabel, and says, I think that you should help this guy. And she says, I don't think it's my place to help him. And Mrs. Hughes says something to the effect of, I never in a zillion years, I'm sure she didn't say zillion, would have heard you say something like that.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten I had any energy or kindness in me.
Yeah. And that was nice to know that she still does. And for me, I have to say that Isabel's storyline and the way that was conveyed in the actress and the whole thing, Penelope, I just thought that was way more emotional for me than the Mary storyline and how she was dealing with her grieving, because just the way she was doing it was just, she still had such elegance about the way she was doing, but you could see the pain, and it was so deep and everything like that. And the line she was saying is, when you lose your only child, you're no longer a mother. You're no longer anything. And she's just dealing with that. It was just brutal to hear the way she was feeling about that.
And it was, as you say, the way the actress portrayed it was just so devastating.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got it, especially because we've seen her in contrast as being sort of, chipper, stiff upper lip with people in the past.
And nothing gets her down, and she's always going to get out there and, charge up the hill and take on anything. And she's just gutted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just devastated to watch her, because I just and I was thinking, no one is going to be able to help her out of this. Who's going to go?
No, because she's the one.
Yeah,
she's the one who saves everyone else.
Exactly, and it was great to see. I mean, obviously, Lady Edith tried to help out and stuff, and even in that scene, you could see that Lady Edith was doing her best and everything, but it was just Isabel wasn't having any of it. But the touch that how sweet it was and stuff. And it was great that Mrs. Hughes figured out, it's always that case when you're feeling horrible, just do something for somebody else.
Well, and they're kind of counterpoints, not counterpoints, but the similar person in their two communities.
Realms.
So exactly. So
Castes, so to
Mrs.
speak.
Hughes for the downstairs and Mrs. Crawley for the upstairs, kind of the champion of the downtrodden, both of them. And so it was nice that they were able to bring it together, because they've done that before when they were helping, the whore. Former maid. Hello. The gal who had fallen upon difficult times. They came together to help her, and so this was another opportunity. I just thought it was a really beautiful moment. Throughout.
It was. So we don't know the whole story between Mr. Grieg.
But I think Mr. Grieg is going to create some serious trouble down the road.
Well, he'll have to. Why else bring him in? We got to stir up the pot.
I also thought this just sort of struck me that. Isabel said, I've drawn you a bath. Here's a lady who's very, cultured and all that.
Yeah.
Drew a bath for this.
Yeah, but she's
smelly
so
guy.
much into the whole.
No, I know she's not. I know she's not. But I just thought that was, it was just an interesting thing for me. And I thought it was, a little like washing feet.
Right. That was
that moment of humility and opportunity to connect with people.
And we got to see a little bit about what the workhouses, the Dickensian workhouses were like. We didn't see a lot of them, but we got a little bit of it. And I also think that this may be an opportunity for us to see more of how Carson used to be. I'm hoping that we'll get to see another side of him that we don't get to see, because then it'll be interesting to see where he came from and what he became.
I'm just looking forward to a tap number.
Yeah, you want to see a Carson song and dance? Is that what you're looking for?
I am. Just real quickly, I know we went over the scene, but I just want to go through the lines of it. I don't see if it as being any of my business, says Isabel.
Yeah.
that's something I never thought I'd hear you say. And Isabel says, I don't think I'm strong enough. And Mrs. Hughes says, you are, if you could set aside your grief to help another. And that is the best way to get out of one's own way, is to help someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was a very wise moment, and something I believe in as well, personally. So.
Yeah. And even, the Dowager tried to help Isabel. They had their little scene together. But that leads into our Molesley thing. So we might as well talk Molesley. And I was just thinking of Molesley, the poor sad sack Molesley. He never gets a break. We always call him break. We always call poor Edith. And this is like poor Molesley. He just can't catch a break either. He's obviously lost a job for obvious reasons, he says. And And
and 6 months later, still looking for one.
Yeah, and he's kind of worn out the generosity of the Granthams, because they've been putting, allowing him to stay. And now, but it's the Dowager that comes to his rescue to some. And I'm going, well, that's interesting too. You got the Dowager going to help Molesley. You got Isabel trying to help Mr. Grieg, and they're all using these things to. In some way, deal with the grief of Matthew. Because when you can't control those things, you try to do something that you can control,
right?
Or at least move it along and stuff.
Well, and also just get off of your own.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of your own. Yeah, that kind of thing. So I thought that was nice. And of course, Molesley turns out horrible at Lady Shackleton's. There's the luncheon is terrible. Nothing goes right because
that rat.
Yeah, but somebody's trying to take his job. He's interested in job security, just like Mrs. Patmore is. She doesn't like the mixer because she's job security.
I know.
Yeah, so there you go. But I just the buffoon that and he's not really a buffoon, but he's hapless, and it's kind of fun. The little comedic diversion that Molesley was nice. But he had some really nice moments with his father. I thought that was nice.
Yes.
Those were tender.
It was really sweet to see him.
Yeah, it was. It was nice. Cause exactly. I love the way that. Mr. Molesley was
senior.
Was senior when he was meeting with the Dowager. He was tipping his hat, but the hat wasn't there. So
he was tipping his bangs.
Maybe
or fringe.
Exactly.
As they would say
maybe that's what they did all the time. When you don't wear a hat.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's just so funny. It looked like he was grabbing his hair.
It's a little like a salute.
It was cute. It was. Yeah, it was nice and stuff. All right, but so let's go on Lady Edith.
Yeah, let's talk about Edith.
Because we just talked about poor Molesley, but here we have poor Edith. So, she's obviously get the Valentine, you're keeping the Michael Gregson romance going, and it was furthered here because, wow, she met him in London. They had, they were at the
Criterion.
Meeting literary people. And
the party first,
yeah, the
right.
party first. And
in the fancy red outfit.
And oh my God, they almost kissed there, and it's getting steamy with Lady Edith.
And then later at the Criterion, they kiss in public. Yeah, she's talking about, I would never have gone out. Mother said we couldn't eat in public.
Yeah.
A few years ago, and now I'm eating in public.
I'm
showing
my
ankles,
and
I'm kissing a man.
And he's married.
Wow,
the things that are happening, it's just crazy.
I want to call her a harlot, but
like
not
an orgy.
really.
It's debauchery.
But so he says to her, I got it all figured out. I have a plan. I'm going to go. You said it earlier when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go where?
I'm going to go to Germany and become a Nazi.
And then we can marry.
I know. Obviously, he didn't say Nazi, but that's just where I took it. So they just came out of World War I, the hated race of the Germans, and now he's going to go there. So
right. She says, you'd become a member of the most hated race in Europe.
Yeah.
For me?
For me. I'm going, yeah, that shows how much he loves you, but poor Edith.
I'm not so sure this is a great trade.
I know. I mean, first she's stuck with the old guy with the arm and, jilted at the altar. And then, so the next guy is married, who his wife's roughly an insane asylum. And he's going to go to Germany and become a citizen so that he can divorce his wife. And then finally they can be together.
How do you think that's going to play out? We sometimes talk predictions early, but let's just do that. I mean...
Well, it's not going to be good or easy because
because they're not going to go. Downton Abbey is not going to go to Germany. I think we can say that pretty clearly.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they will just to do that whole thing, and because it's kind of a spoiler, but we know that Lady Edith is going to blossom, and she's going to be more in the flapper kind of
independent woman stretching her wings
exactly.
kind of deal.
She's going to get into the literati, so to speak, become a writer of some note, I guess. So who knows how far they're going to take that? Will they go? I don't know if they'll go to Germany or anything, but whatever it is, I mean, it's going to be great for Lord Grantham. He's going to freak. If he had a hard enough time with her last beau, this is going to be great.
Well, and he is doing the sidelong glances whenever Grayson is brought up.
Happy.
Gregson, sorry. Yeah. He's people will be talking about him, and then there's Lord Grantham.
Yeah, that's. Oh, yeah, he's just
sort
not
of
having it.
throwing
even
scorn
says-
across the room.
She can do better. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but every father thinks that of his. Well, not every. But most fathers think that of their daughter.
True,
Surely
true.
your father did. So, anyway, so what are they going to do? I don't know how they're going to run that out.
Well, what I was going to say was I don't think that Downton Abbey is going to. Oh, actually, to preface this, how long does he have to be in Germany in order to? We don't
become
know
a citizen.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
To become a citizen,
in
it's
order
not
to
something you can
divorce.
do in a week, I would assume.
Yeah, and he's going to move his wife there too, or is just he? I mean, it's all
Right.
the-
How does that
yeah,
work? So I
figure it out
don't. The machinations of it, I don't think are going to be easy to do within the constraints of this
Yeah,
show.
and it won't make good TV to do. All
And
that
it's not good
anyway,
TV.
Yeah,
So a little like Carson being in prison.
yeah. Bates.
Excuse me,
That's
beg your
right,
pardon.
that's right.
Bates being in prison. Thank you. So I'm just going to make a prediction, and I think we're going to be talking about poor Edith again.
Of course. It's like
Those of
she's-
you who may not have seen our podcast before, because we have been coinciding
Yeah.
with the U.S.
Yeah.
broadcast in the past, poor Edith was my hashtag
It
for.
was, yeah, for a long
her name
time.
wasn't Edith; it was poor Edith because she was
Yeah,
always.
poor baby. All right, so let's. Our last little thing was the of course the Valentine's notes
The
that Ivy gets, and
Valentines.
I'm sorry, that Daisy gets, and we learn, of course, it's not from Jimmy, it's
from Mrs.
So she doesn't
Patmore.
have an admirer, but she does
Just
have a
friend.
And, again, just these little moments that was just peppering throughout. They were just, I just like the way they do them.
What about Ivy getting drunk?
I know. Whoa. And of course, Jimmy's at fault. Jimmy's kind of, I don't know, he's a loose cannon too. He's just kind of, let's just go out. Yeah.
He's a
It's like-
pot stirrer.
Yeah, pot stir. Yeah,
A little bit.
absolutely. And then like, what? I didn't know it was gonna. Like you can't see around the corner. Like
Right.
that wasn't gonna happen.
Right?
So.
And then the mixer
Oh yeah.
with
Yeah, this
Mrs.
is-
Hughes and
yeah.
Mrs. Patmore. Sweet,
Yep.
cute,
Mhm.
fun.
All right.
Love it. Want to talk some news?
Yeah, because I think we've exhausted what we can about the episode. Now we'll get into some news.
TV news.
All right. There was an article in the Telegraph
A reputable source, right?
about, gosh, I've just lost it. Sorry. Okay. No, that was my last one. Okay. This episode was 96 minutes long,
Oh yeah, no, it's
Stretch-
90 minutes long.
stretched to 2 hours due to commercials.
No, it was 67 minutes worth of actual screen time and
23 minutes of commercials.
Yeah.
So it has
it
been
was a
dubbed.
90-minute thing that was 67 minutes worth of actual screen time
So people have been dubbing it Downton Abbey.
for all the commercials.
Yes.
Too many commercials.
Too many commercials. Lots of people
Downton
coming out
Abbey.
on Twitter talking about how terrible it was to be listening to all these commercials. The show was very nice in small snippets between ads.
Yeah, but this is nothing new because they had the same complaint last year. I mean, and of course, ITV came out and said like there are no more commercials here than there have been for other 90-minute broadcasts. But I don't know. It seemed like everybody was not happy with that part of it. It was
No.
like, yeah, it was nice to watch Downton Abbey between the commercials. There was way
Right.
too many commercials, and there was just a little bit of Downton Abbey. So
Yeah.
who knows? They're
Downton
angry about it.
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey, not happy with
Next week's episode is an hour and 5 minutes.
Well, that's what the running time is. Who knows how many
How many commercials?
Yeah,
Well-
so it'll probably be only 44 minutes after you take the commercials out. So who
That's a
knows?
little horrifying.
Yeah, I know.
We'll be watching. We'll
Yeah.
be watching to see. This was the article from the Telegraph. Michelle Dockery talking about the ladylike world of Downton Abbey rubbing off on the female stars. She says that when she was in a restaurant with Laura Carmichael,
Oh,
who
okay.
plays poor Edith, the two of them sat with their hands clasped when they weren't eating, which
Oh,
is
in their
the
lap?
proper way. Yes, that's either your hands are engaged in something. If they're not, they
They're in their
sit
lap.
hands clasped.
As opposed to like
Like we're sitting like this.
elbows on the table, and all
And
that
someone noticed it and pointed it out, and she said, "Well, that's Downton Abbey seeping into my
wow.
real life. So maybe something has rubbed off." She said.
stuff. Ooh.
And she said, a quote was, "There's one thing, I do feel nostalgic about that kind of femininity." So the idea that, I hate this term, but I'm going to use it because it's traditional, the weaker sex, the ladies being,
Well, back in that time, that was considered.
that was
yeah.
tradition at the time.
The more demure side of everything.
Right, exactly. And the other thing she says is that she likes that in referring to the fashion, there's nothing gratuitous about it. You never see any flesh. And she says, but then I've never been the sort of girl who shows off my curves. So she seems very suited to
Wow.
the life. And so, I mean, obviously that's why they cast
She
her.
didn't have a lot of
curves to show off in the first place.
Exactly. She's a lovely young lady, but she's just not very curvy. That's all.
Also, speaking to those other times, the Countess of Carnarvon,
Yes, the actual
who
Countess
lives
of
at Highclere
Highclere.
Castle, she has a new blog that's out, and it came out about, I'm going to say about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. Talks a little snippets about life at Carnarvon. She talks about, when she was out getting muddy, walking the dogs recently, that sort of thing. It's delightful to read. So if you get a chance, read that.
So a
But
Countess blog?
Yeah, the Countess of Carnarvon has a blog.
Wow.
She said that she does admire the slower pace of life, but enjoyed modern conveniences and the egalitarian mentality too much to go back to the time.
Oh, she likes the slower pace of the Downton Abbey days as opposed to nowadays. Is that what
She likes the slower pace, but she likes the modern conveniences.
Right, of course, who doesn't?
Her quote was, "Doctors and dentists today, I much prefer, and I love washing machines."
There you go.
The words of the Countess.
From the Countess, like
herself.
she actually uses a washing
I think she
machine, or-
actually does some laundry on
Wow,
occasion.
that's
You
good
know,
to
if
know.
you can't find the butler at that moment, you got to do a load yourself.
Yeah,
So there you go.
Okay, so
And that is our news.
That's our news.
for
Great.
tonight.
Okay, so we got any predictions?
Now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I've sort of let a lot of mine leak out as we went. You
yeah,
were
you
good
did.
at keeping yours, so why don't you start with yours and I'll see if anything
this
else
isn't
comes
really my prediction. It's just a spoiler alert to some degree. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. They've let it out, so it's the makers. Julian Fellows has talked about it. That Branson is going to have a love interest as well. The new nanny apparently is going to be.
Oh, the new.
The new nanny.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. So,
fantastic.
Yeah,
I have not been reading my UK newspapers,
exactly.
clearly.
So, I forgot the actress's name. I don't remember her name.
It's okay.
Yeah. So I think it's actually Daisy. Anyway, that's a real name. But I don't know the character name because I don't know that it's been released. So I couldn't find it. But anyway, so the new nanny apparently is going to be a love interest, which I think is going to play
Branson,
into the
so
whole
that's-
Edna thing.
Oh, it is. That's going to be good.
So we have the love triangle. So apparently Edna, who is the
Lady's maid.
Lady's maid is going to be vying for Branson. Well, we think she will because she did prior series, and he's not going to have any of it because he's going to be interested in the nanny.
Well, one of the things we don't know about this show is that or we do know, is that they make great leaps in time. So,
Yeah, sometimes they do.
the next episode it won't be, but it could be, a long time down the road.
Could be, yeah.
So, and we do know that Mary gets a love interest as well.
so we'll be
But so
following
I
that.
just, I want to reiterate that I think poor Edith is going to be crushed once again.
Yeah, I mean,
But here's what I think is going to happen. I
Yeah.
think that she is going to redeem herself through her work.
oh, she's going to find her.
I think she's going to really, blossom and find fulfillment through work and, her brains, which I think fits along perfectly with what's going on in
the time.
society in
Right.
the time. And she doesn't need a man, and she doesn't need to, live this
Right.
cloistered life of a lady of leisure. She's going to become something
and
important.
maybe rather than following the path of marriage or whatever, she's going to say, screw it. You don't need to be divorced. We'll just have a long affair. Who knows? Maybe I don't know. Maybe
I think
where
that's
we're going with it.
possible. I think that's absolutely
Because
possible.
that would be interesting right there, because that would certainly show some sort of, well, if you call it progression or not, but that would be kind of mark that kind of change. And also I think it would be interesting speaking to about the other female, the other sister, Mary. So she's going to, as I mentioned before, I think she's going to step into more of a leadership role in terms of the Downton and how it's run and all that stuff. And the
Right.
ideas that she championed or that Matthew championed, she might further. And obviously her own ideas as well. But I think it's going to be interesting because this will be the first working mother that we'll see on Downton.
Nice.
Because, we don't really see that kind of thing, but she'll be the working mother.
Right. Right.
From in 1922.
I like that idea.
So there you go.
I want to encourage our listeners and viewers
Yeah.
to comment and rate on iTunes, but also comment on YouTube
Yeah.
and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know what you think is going to happen, or how you liked the story arcs, or what
Yeah.
you think is going to happen with what character, and where you like to see the show go, or where you don't want it to go.
Yeah, because
But
I
love to
love
hear the
reading those
theories.
things. I love reading the tweets because I do get
Yeah.
tweets from a couple people in the UK, and it's always fun to read those, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because anything that we find interesting that we can't or we didn't come up with, we want to know what you guys come up with so we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
So we always say we want to start the conversation here. We'd love for you guys to continue it so
Yeah.
that we can, when next time we meet, we'll have that as part of our show.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening. Tell everybody where they can find you in future.
Oh, on Twitter, I am at Tamara Berg, TamaraBerg. Also, my website is tamaracentral.com.
Yes, and Marissa, if they want to get in contact with you or find anything about AfterBuzz.
I'm on Twitter at Serafini TV. That's SERAFINI.
And of course, you can always go to AfterBuzzTV.com and let us know whatever you want or have any questions about the show at all.
Yeah,
you can't find me anywhere. You can't follow me anywhere, but I will be here next week, and we will talk to you next time.
Yes,
Thanks
we
for
will.
listening.
Thanks for being with us.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.